Hello everyone, the Snowman here, and let's get set for the first ATP Masters 1000 tournament of the season. It is the BNP Paribas Open in Indian Wells, California. If you missed it, I already made a video yesterday for the women's draw, the WTA side of things, so please check that out if you have time. But today I'm going to focus on the men. Indian Wells, one of the biggest tournaments of the year. Really, it's the Grand Slams, and then it's Indian Wells and Miami are the 5th and 6th biggest tournaments of the season. So it's a big time for tennis, and let's dive into this men's draw. We begin with Section 1, and let's start with the number 1 player in the world, Novak Djokovic. And if you're not that big a fan of the Joker, I hate to break it to you, but he's probably going to be the number 1 player for quite some time. He is not defending many points the next couple of months. At this time last year, he was losing in the first round of Indian Wells to Taro Daniel, and in the first round of the Miami Open to Benoit Paire. So he's not defending a lot of points for the next couple of months. Didn't really make a deep run at a tournament until Rome last season. So that's pretty scary to think about. But he's the comfortable number 1 seed and the favorite at this tournament. But he could have himself a battle in the 3rd round because Nick Kyrgios is lurking. And Kyrgios is coming off a dream run in Acapulco. He was 2-3 heading into that tournament. But Rafael Nadal was his opponent in the 2nd round, and Kyrgios saved 3 match points in a great 3rd set tiebreaker to oust the Spaniard. Then he went on to take down Stan Wawrinka, John Isner, and Sasha Zverev in the final. 3 top 10 players in that tournament that Kyrgios slain, the most he had ever beat in a single tournament. So he's on fire right now. I thought he just did an incredible job of mixing it up, had a feathery touch on some droppers, looked to just keep his head in the cool moments just enough, because we know that Kyrgios can be so hot and cold at times. But it was an electric atmosphere, especially the match against Nadal. And Kyrgios is riding high. He is ready for whatever Djokovic throws at him. Kyrgios, by the way, 2-0 all-time against the Joker. He's shown he can beat the Big Four when it counts. He's certainly a guy that shines when the lights are brightest. So Kyrgios, Djokovic, that's a big part of this Section 1. Will they meet in the 3rd round? And don't sleep on the 31 seed then, Gael Monfils, who was coming off a title in Rotterdam and then a good run in Dubai as well. Monfils is an athletic freak. He hasn't lost a step, though. Now at age 32, still doing incredible things and as entertaining as ever. And then what you also have in the bottom half of this, Thiem and Coric. Don't be surprised if there are some upsets in this first section of the draw. In quarter 2, the top seed and favorites come out of the section, Alexander Zverev, who's coming off some dominating performances in Acapulco until he ran into the aforementioned red-hot Kyrgios in the final. But Zverev has been pretty good this season thus far. He's right on schedule. Obviously, the Grand Slam success still needs to come at some point. He lost in the round of 16 to Milos Raonic at the Australian Open this year. But even bigger than Zverev's success is that he could be seeing a familiar face, his brother, Misha Zverev, older brother by about 10 years in the 2nd round. If Misha can take out Martin Klizan, we will have ourselves a good old-fashioned brother showdown. And they have met only one time before. That was last year at the City Open in Washington, D.C. Little brother Sasha got the better of Misha then, and you would expect the same thing to take place at Indian Wells, but if it happens, it's going to be so much fun. Whether it's the Manning bros or the Williams sisters, it's always good to see the family aspect in pro sports. So will we get that? Could also see Grigor Dimitrov and Milos Raonic are in this little mini section. Zverev, I don't think he wants to see Raonic again, especially with that huge serve. Raonic can take over any match that he plays. And then we could have another great 2nd round matchup in this section because Stefanos Tsitsipas, the 9 seed who's been on a roll lately, he backed up his semifinal run at the Australian Open by winning a title in Marseille and then making a final in Dubai, lost to Federer in that final. But I think he's a guy at 6'4". He plays very similarly to Federer despite being a bit taller, having more raw physical tools. I think he hasn't tapped into quite all of that yet. He's still got a lot of room to grow, but Tsitsipas plays a lot like Fed, and the future's certainly bright for him. He could be running into another ATP Next Gen star in the 2nd round, 18-year-old Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime. And Felix coming off an incredible clay court swing where he made a final at the 500 level event at the Rio Open. I think it was the youngest ever to accomplish that feat. And then he also backed it up with a quarterfinal appearance in Sao Paulo. So those two young stars, Tsitsipas has played a lot of matches lately, 20 already in 2019. I think Felix could get the better of Tsitsipas. All right, lots of fun things happening in Section 3 now, and let's start with the number 4 seed here, Roger Federer, who's coming off his 100th career title in Dubai last week. Well, it's just 9 away now from Jimmy Connor's mark of 109, the all-time record career titles. So just a brilliant performance. Fed kind of started out slow in that tournament in Dubai, had some shaky performances against Fernando Verdasco and Marton Fucsovics. Needed an 8-6 first set tiebreaker against the Hungarian Fucsovics to get by him. But once he got to the latter stages, the semifinal and the final, just smoked Borna Coric, and then Stefanos Tsitsipas. Looked amazing. And as I'm watching him win that title last week, especially against Coric and Tsitsipas, it's amazing how in the dire situations, he can go in the deuce court to the kick serve out wide, and he's still burning people with the serve and volley, and like his net game, it's tough because Fed is so good at so many things, but I think we actually underrate how good he is at volleying, and Stefan Edberg, his former coach, had a huge play in that as well, helping him. But like his explosion to the net at age 37, just phenomenal to watch. So Fed bags his 100th career title last week. He's on a roll. He'll be one of the favorites. But much like Djokovic and Kyrgios in Section 1, tennis fans will be hoping for another blockbuster potential third-round clash in this section, and Fed could be seeing his fellow countryman, the Swiss Stanislas Wawrinka, who he's coming off a final in Rotterdam a few weeks back, and then he ran into the red-hot Kyrgios in Acapulco. But I really am looking forward to that match if it happens. Fed leads the all-time series against Stan 18-3 in their 21 meetings, and they met at the 2017 Indian Wells final just a couple of seasons ago. So it's going to be a lot of fireworks, a lot of power, star power on display there. And then another match I'd like to see in this quarter, two young studs, Denis Shapovalov against Taylor Fritz. That would be entertaining. I'd give probably the slight edge to Shapo if that were the second round matchup. You also have Kei Nishikori and Marin Cilic in this part of the draw. But I think Fed is the comfortable favorite. Now it gets interesting. Section 4, we have the 2 seed Rafael Nadal, and he is coming off that loss to Kyrgios. I know I've been mentioning Kyrgios a lot, but he's been big time lately. So Nadal recently losing to Kyrgios in Acapulco, where he had 3 match points. Nadal hasn't played much this year, just that tournament, and then the Australian Open, where he looked great until running into Joker in the final. But Nadal, he hasn't enjoyed a lot of hard-court success the last year plus. So you may want to hedge your expectations, especially because there's a couple guys lurking here, and one person who I'm particularly interested to see how he plays at Indian Wells, Karen Khachanov, 12 seed, a young Russian player who is part of this next-gen wave and looked so promising towards the end of last year, winning the Paris Masters indoor title, beating Djokovic when he was on that tear in the final. So far, he's on a 4-match losing streak this year, 4-5 total. You also have the reigning Miami Open champ, the 8 seed John Isner, but I'm going my ultimate dark horse for this entire event, Tomas Berdych, who has looked really good this year in his comeback. Had an injury-riddled 2018, missed 7 months with a back injury. But Berdych, like Stan Wawrinka, like Joe-Willie Tsonga, some of these 33-year-olds coming back from injuries, Berdych is starting to look like himself, and he's 12-5 this year, made a final in Doha, had a good run in Melbourne as well, making the 4th round there, losing to Rafa. Berdych has a 7-2 career mark against John Isner. Isner's not going to scare him, and I don't think Khachanov and his woeful form scares him right now too. Berdych could make easily a deep run to the quarterfinals, and then if he meets Nadal, it could get interesting. But I love the proposition for Tomas Berdych. I think a deep run for the Czech is in the cards at Indian Wells. As for the winner of this tournament, very tough to predict. We don't have the reigning champion at Indian Wells, Juan Martín del Potro. Unfortunately, he re-injured his knee at Delray Beach a few weeks back, so he's not competing. I think he's still trying to get to the Miami Open, but Del Po unsure for that. I think, look, you can't go wrong with Djokovic and Federer, but for me, don't be surprised if we see a guy like Kyrgios making a semifinal run, a final run. Like, he is just so hot right now. The guys I've mentioned, Stan, Berdych, a lot could happen, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So this is the first Masters 1000 tournament of the year. A huge, huge event in California, and I can't wait to watch. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to the Snowman Sports Media. Give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, tell me who you think is going to do well at this tournament. And I'll be back very soon. Until then, cheers.